Hello, my name is Kelly McCart, and this is my week 5 assignment. I chose to pursue for our printmaking course repeating and alternating patterns, specifically in using a tessellating tile inspired by Islamic art. So before I began, I did some research using Google Arts and Culture, specifically at the Museum of Islamic Art in Qatar, where I noticed that star motif pattern that was often used in mosaics and metalworking in the Middle East. And what I think is fascinating for students when they're pursuing things like Islamic art is that it didn't make sense for artists to carry around like oil paint around a desert, right? You use the materials you had at hand. So in reading from the museum, I learned that often Islamic arts were stained glass or ceramics, things that materials you would have available in those regions. So what I'm going to show you in my demonstration is how to do the drawing first in marker, then emboss on the piece of foam using a pencil to press in, how to fold the paper into quadrants to repeat that tessellation, a design with no gaps and overlaps, and finally how to add color, baby, and getting that into its final piece that could be used as a giant class project to repeat all together. So observe me now as I go through my printing process. In order to begin my repeating pattern image, I started first with 2 foam pieces cut into 4.5 by 4.5 and taped with a piece of masking tape. Now, when I decided to do my design, I focused primarily on my research on Islamic art and how it was mainly scenes of nature, very simple patterns and geometric shapes that would repeat. If I was having students do this, what I would typically do first is have them draw with a washable Crayola marker before then coming in to simply emboss with a pencil. I like this technique rather than drawing on paper and holding over top because sometimes I find the paper moves around, and I also find that the marker is washable so you can wipe it away. Now to print. I set up my printing setup inspired by Professor Streeter's video earlier on creating a space for ink, space for printing, space for clean paper, so that you can be organized through working. Now, if I was having students do this, I would have them take turns and rotate through printing. So one person would ink while one person uses the clean brayer to press. I like using another sheet of paper over top of my prints. I think that finds it from moving around, and that's inspiration I took from the collagraph example. I also folded my paper into quadrants. I figured this would be a math concept that would tie together not only with what the tessellation is in geometry, as well as talking about the grid coordinate system. And as I'm printing, I'm lining up my repeating pattern to create that tessellation. Again, remember a tessellation is with no gaps and overlaps and a shape that repeats. And here, this is purely an Islamic art pattern that I took from inspiration online. You can see when they match together, they create that space in between. And one last goodbye from the class. So thank you for joining me on this journey of creating my tessellation tile. I hope with my final piece that you can observe that I've created a pattern that repeats. I've made something that's practical for my classroom, and I've come up with a way to do this so that it's tangible for students and they're learning about another culture. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to your feedback as usual as we pursue and continue our studio printmaking course.